Hi there and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychak with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I've done one little craft with the, this is something hollows, hidden hollows. I just call them fairy doors, but the new mold from IOD. I think it's hidden hollows. I can't remember, the fairy doors. And I wanted to do another sweet little craft. So what I have is this, I have this little clock. And so what we're going to do is pop it apart because it doesn't work anyway. So we're gonna take this baby apart and, okay, you'd think that I would have thought to have gotten, I just needed to loosen it. There we go. It had like big double-sided sticky stuff on it. All right, we're gonna pop this off. And I'm not gonna really worry about stuff on it, I don't think. There we go, there's the X-Acto knife. Because I'm thinking my door is gonna cover most of this up. I just want to get all the pieces that sort of peel off of there. Bonus. Now it's got all sticky stuff and all that fluff is stuck to the sticky. All right, so what we are going to do is we are going to put one of these doors. Now I've done this door. This pointy door is too tall, but I think, okay, I'm gonna go with this one, and then if it doesn't fit in the bottom, I'll just cut it off. So what we're going to do is just kind of paint a little bit. Oh my goodness, I'm like down to the bare dregs. I'm gonna paint some cornstarch into here because I've got all those little twigs in the top of this door, and I don't want my air dry clay to stick. Okay, so the clay works very simply by just simply pushing into the mold, and where we've got all of those little tree branches on this one, just push against that micro rim. It's got that raised edging around it that helps you be able to cut off the design nice and sharp against those details. And that's one of the really advantages of the IOD molds, is that they came out with that micro rim that just allows you to be able to get those nice, crisp, sharp images and be able to do that quite easily. Now I'm going to do it for the bottom as well, even though I think I'm going to have to be cutting the bottom off because I think it's a little too tall, and that when all is said and done, I'm going to want the detail on the top more so than the detail on the bottom. Here's sometimes the tricky part. If you're doing this with resin, then you're just pouring it in, waiting for it to harden, and then releasing it from the mold. If you are doing it with the clay, and you've got a lot of these details, and some of the new molds from the IOD have a lot of details, or they have a lot of skinny parts, like I think in the Dewdrop Pond, there's a dragonfly and that long skinny tail, right? You could pop them in the freezer for a couple of minutes and then they come out easily. I am never that patient. So what I do is I take a little flat-edged brush and I just use it to gently tease out my mold. Because if I used my finger, then I would probably be pushing. And there's so many details in this that it makes it hard not to maybe, well, technical term, mush them, right? Or distort them or something. So I just kind of rock it back and forth so that I'm able to see what I'm loosening, what I'm not. Okay, there we go. Ooh, that's lovely. All right, so let me see if I'm putting this. Well, I can have some of the branches going up. I'm gonna have this kind of curving. Perfect. So I'm going to just kind of trim this off along the bottom so I can fit it into the curve of my clock. And then I'm gonna get that glued down first because I have the top of this, oops, let me get that little piece out of there. I have the top of this curving over the top. So I want to get that laid down in while it's still pliable, right? So that it's not gonna end up sticking way up in the air. Just two little spots where I didn't. All right. Ooh, the exciting part. Now I have a little, my glue is like permanently glued closed here. So I just take some little glue spatulas. And I just want to make sure that this is sort of centered on there. Since that's my main feature. Awesome. So there's my little door in the middle of there. And what I'm looking at doing now is just adding, sort of free-forming, some little vines here and there. So I want to have some vines coming up over the edges and so this already has a little stumpy branch coming off that side. So I'm going to take advantage of that and add in some other little branches and vines and come and wrap around all of the edging on it. So I don't have any more cornstarch here in the shop, but I had baby powder. Go figure. Smells nicer. So what I have is this little teeny tiny gum paste flower that I had from this old cake decorating kit that was hanging around my house. I just sent my husband to get it. So I'm just dipping it in there, easier, taking a little tiny bit of the clay, pushing it in, okay, and then I'm taking a straight and I am popping it out. Now, it's kind of shaped as a little star. I'm just taking this little ball end tool, sticking it down in the center, dipping that down into my glue, and I am sticking it down onto my little vines. So what I envision, I'm not covering the whole vine, so I just put 2 there. I'll put a bunch in a bunch of places. It still means I have a mess of little flowers to go. I only have a tiny little bit of clay left. It should be enough because these really don't take a lot. And I really didn't know if I'd get it out of here, but that works fine. So baby powder works great in a pinch. And you know, I figured this works for gum paste. It would work for the clay, right? Because our clay works, I mean, our molds work great for fondant and things like that. So why not? So these are actually quite quick to do. So let me do a couple and then I can glue a bunch at a time. So I'm just going to continue making these, gluing them in place. That one didn't stick. Well, I mean, sorry, it did stick. I don't want it to. It didn't release. So I'm going to continue making these, getting them glued in place, and then leaving this to dry overnight. Yeah, if I use enough, of the baby powder, they stick no problem. Don't stick it too far in your glue or else it just stays there. I'll have to come back and get that guy. And then they just pop right on. My molds have had overnight to dry, and this is what they look like with the sweet little vines going up the sides and those tiny little flowers, that little marzipan cutter or that fondant, I guess, or I don't know, some kind of cake thing. Cutter was perfect. That was the perfect little size of flower. Now we got a mess of painting to do. So first things first, I'm gonna paint everything white. So I'm gonna give everything 2 coats of white, get all of my molds and my background and everything painted a solid color. And then we'll come back and we'll start looking at adding in all the detail, because really painting it one solid color like white means all the detail disappears, really. So we're gonna bring back the detail once we've got all of our white on there, and it's gonna look cute. I like this. I've got my 2 coats of white on here, so you can see that it's very monochromatic, right? It just kind of disappears. So now we just get to paint. And for this, I'm just gonna use really watered down, well, I'm gonna use watercolors actually. I'm gonna try it. So first of all, they're all dried up on my little palettes. So I'm going to reactivate them a bit with some water. And you could use, I just want kind of a translucent sort of look. I want it to be a little bit soft looking. But you could use acrylics, you could use craft paints, you could use whatever paints you've got. I mean, you could take your DIY clay-based paint or your chalk paints and just use those. And just water them down how you need. I've got a bucket of water and I'm just gonna kind of play with, you know what? I'm just gonna play with the colors that are here on the palette. But I just want to add a bit of color, and then I'll see how much more color I need to add. I want to maybe do a little bit of antiquing and shading afterward, but I just was going for a little bit of a lighter look. So at this point, we are just painting, and we are painting in whatever paint mediums we happen to have, and we are painting in whatever colors we want. Right? So here's where you just get to play. I mean, you're using You're using what you got. So I'm going with a very light blue door with the idea that once I get some basic color on, I can go back in and add a little bit of details if I want to. If I don't, then I can just leave it. So it becomes yours. The idea behind this version really was to show that you can kind of use anything to create your little tableau. So you could have stuck this onto a big wood slice. You could have put it onto a canvas. You could have stuck it on a book. You could have put it into a picture frame. You could have stuck it onto, you know, an old mirror, just an old rough wood board. So this was just giving an idea of, you know what? These old clocks are kind of interesting. They create a little stand for you when your little picture is done. So it gives you kind of a little bit of that kind of finish, but you know what? You get to do this on whatever backing you happen to have, whatever makes sense. Now, to seal the watercolor, I am just going to spray it lightly with a spray poly because I am not sure if wax is going to smear it. But so far, it is going onto my medium just fine. So I'm having good luck with that. And I'm just going to carry on having some fun with painting this. And then I'll come back at you when I've got all the color on. Now that I've got the color on this, and you can see that it's just kind of super sweet. I did a very faint wash in the background on the front. I'm leaving the sides white. But what I have decided is just to add a little bit of something. I have a hard time calling it quits sometimes. What I do have is Old and Gray, which is like a barnwood patina from DIY. It's like a pale gray, obviously. And you can see it works just the same as the Dark and Decrepit patina. So it's a sealer, but I just want to add it in around kind of the edges. So I have one brush that I apply it on, and then a second brush that I just kind of smudge it. Technical term, smudging. But just to kind of blur it, add just a little bit of definition. So you can see over on this side where I've added it, right? Versus nothing here. It's subtle, but it adds a little something. The one thing that I forgot to mention, and it occurred to me as I was doing the watercolor, I left you guys with adding Beadboard by DIY, a coat of the white, and I said I was going to do 2 coats, which I did do 2 coats of white, but what I ended up doing was a spray paint. It was a spray chalk paint, but it kind of has a sealer, so it's a little bit more glossy, which allowed the watercolor to kind of glide and slide a little bit, and it meant it was sort of sealed. And I just thought, in case you did watercolor on yours, then you weren't getting the same effect. Maybe the chalk paint was sucking it in. I cheated. I didn't cheat. It was just I had so many things. I've been working on a big custom piano for clients, and I just another coat of white. It was just, as I was leaving, I thought I could just spray paint it. It could dry overnight. It would be done. I could move forward. It's just one of those. So it worked great for the watercolor. I really liked it. I'm going to continue on with this, and obviously I'll take some pics so you can see the finished product. But I hope it just gives you an idea of just another little something that you can do. I really look at this as being part of cute Easter decor. You know, put a couple of bunnies beside it and scatter a couple of eggs, and I think that this would be super sweet. As always, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you're doing with those little fairy door, hidden hollow. I keep calling them fairy doors. Love to hear what you're doing with them. But I think again, they just lend themselves to be used in kind of fun little whimsical ways. You know, little hidden hideaway that somebody can go through the door to, a little hidden world. Look forward to seeing you on the next one, as always. And until then, take care.